Hi everyone. So today I have Adam, and I couldn't pronounce his last name to be honest, but he is CEO of Forza Clubs. Adam, just introduce yourself a little
Yeah, so it's actually Adam Stighäll or Stighäll in
bit.
Swedish pronunciation.
Okay.
I've been in the sports industry for the past almost 20 years. I think next year is my 20th. Currently runs a company called Forza Clubs. Yeah, since seventh, this is my 8th month, I believe, on the job and trying to conquer the world of sports.
Okay, interesting. So we'll go a little bit through your background, how you got to this position, and you've mentioned you are 20 years in the sports industry. Just a quick brief, how did you get over there?
Yeah, so I was brought up in the north of Sweden, and as many people, I first played sports,
Mm-hmm.
and then when starting to look for a job, it was convenient to start putting in hours for the local sports clubs. So I
Mm-hmm.
think I started doing like volunteer work for the local football club when I was about, I think already at 15 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I got myself a little bit of experience, then worked for the local newspaper as a sports reporter way back then. And that sort of led me into working full time at a football club, full time with sporting events, and then doing sports media for 10 years as well. Been involved, co owned, co founded a few companies there.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the past, yeah, like in 2024, jumped on this new venture, so to speak. So basically, really worked my way up from the ground up, which is something that you're fortunate to do, to be able to do if you want to work in sports. It's not every type of job where you can actually just go into a
Mm-hmm.
sports organization and they allow for people to work voluntarily for free to gather experience and to help out.
Can we say, from what I've heard, can we say that your main expertise in actually in sports media and in this area of sports?
All commercial aspects of sports is where I feel most at home, I would say.
Okay, and commercial is the most important aspect of sports, so it's
I
nice.
think I think winning is the most important, but maybe after winning.
I mean, they are connected to each other, right?
Yeah, of course, success follows the money, but it's not always the case. But if we're talking about the elite aspects of things as well.
Okay, yeah, Adam. So that's nice, like having this, broad experience in commercial wise in the sports. Tell us about what you do now and how do you help sports world.
Yeah, so the sports industry, and mainly I would say the sports clubs and leagues and rights holders, especially the clubs, they are following the other industries, which is basically in from the commercial aspect, is basically to start taking a stronger ownership of the fan journey. I mean, if you are a clothing brand, you wouldn't call it fan journey, you would call it customer journey, perhaps,
Mm-hmm.
and take a stronger ownership, being able to communicate directly with your fans or those who are buying your brand. So football and other sports are following in this direction, and the job that we have is to make that transition as smooth as possible. Usually we achieve this by building in the clubs or leagues an application that serves a
Mm-hmm.
lot of this purpose. So you can gather the first party fan data, communicate directly with your own customers, so to speak. So that is sort of the end game of what we're doing.
Okay, so you help clubs to create raving fans, I would say.
Ah, you said Raven fans.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we increase the fan experience, make them more engaged, have the club sell more tickets, more merchandise, digital revenues, and then we do it through a platform that we supply. So yeah, we try to help them from the start of that journey, not to the end, but at least into the future. And this is something we're not exactly like new to this. We are active in 10 countries right now. It's from Tigres in Mexico to Galatasaray in the other, not the other end of the world, but certainly in another direction. So we've been around for a while, and the company was actually brought to life from a live score application called Forza Football that is also still
Mm-hmm.
active, that has a couple of million users daily in their platform. So I would say we've been around more or less since 2012,
Mm-hmm.
working with clubs for the past 5 years. So yeah, it's just it's an awesome journey to be on. I would say it's so much happening in the sports industry in terms of change being done. And you of course working with data, you know this better than most.
Yeah, I'm interested. You mentioned that the company Forza Clubs is part of the Forza Football, or how does it work? Like,
Yeah, we share the same board of directors. We share a bunch of developer resources. We of course share data and insights and work together in several ways. But on the paper, it's two separate companies with pretty similar names, I would suggest. So
mm-hmm.
we're not exactly hiding it. So we try to, instead of just taking advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because before, doing a podcast, I was doing research and thinking, okay, so sounds similar. Do these guys have any connections between, two of these companies? Okay, so interesting thing that while you were talking, I was thinking about it. Like, so let's say in other industries, when you are the brand, right? It's like obvious that you want to have a customer journey, and basically, there are a lot of things that are being done in just general world, like brand work, where like clothing, let's say, or other industries where companies are trying to, to pursue the customers, to make customers happy, to have them, always being with them. And, that's other industries. That looks normal. But how do you see is sports falling behind on the path of creating a, good fan journeys and creating a raving fans, like Casey said?
I would say sports, I would say especially, I would say football is a little bit conservative,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that, fairly traditional, a little bit afraid to do mistakes. If you would compare to, let's say, I would say a lot of clothing brands, they know that they have to be a lot more challenging in order to be sort of successful.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also say that in a lot of cases, they also have a lot of competition. If
Mm-hmm.
you're a if you're a football club, the local fans that you have, you don't really compete with anyone about your local fans, especially not short term. In the long term, they all compete for sort of the next generation of
Mm-hmm.
fans, so that my boys will choose to support Juventus as I did, or Manchester City, and so on. So long term they do, but short term they are not really punished for not treating it well. So for instance, I mean, if you are a clothing brand, you are very sort of keen on getting, or I would say any commercial business, you want the first party
Mm-hmm.
data of your clients.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, that is sort of taken for granted. It's
Mm-hmm.
also something that football clubs or sports organizations, they know this as well. They're doing a lot of job to increase the first party data and not rely on zero party data, especially I would say even in smaller sports organizations. It's also being done right now because it's a lot of pressure also from the sponsorships, or the sponsors I should say, that you want to know who is the people that are supporting this club, and how do we know that the data is real, not fake, and
Mm-hmm.
can we, if we are a sponsor, communicate in any way with these fans, because if you're not allowed to do that, it's a lot trickier to generate sales and so on. But anyway, if you're a clothing brand, it's a non-negotiable to have first party data. You always want that about your customers. You also want to, as you really want to not leave any part of this sort of customer journey to
Mm-hmm.
someone else, because if you leave it to
Yeah.
someone else, it's a big risk that it's not done great. It's like using maybe, I mean, you would probably not use a lot of consultants to grow your business. You rather have them hired by you in your company in order to grow, because they obviously will
Mm-hmm.
care more for the brand, and that will also mirror in what and how they are selling. So that
Mm-hmm.
is from like a brand perspective. It's something that it's been taken for granted. It's something that's taken for given that is everyone is doing. So to translate this a little bit to like what we are doing, I would say that if you're a commercial brand, if you are you probably get incentivized to share your data with the clothing brand. You will get a
Mm-hmm.
voucher for $10 or €10 if you download and register in the application.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you take some other type of action, signing up for a newsletter,
Okay.
you will also get incentivized. You get a coupon code or a discount, because then it's a start for the clothing brand to communicate with you as a customer, and also to get some ownership of your data. But if you're a football club, as as it works right now, you you have a lot of hardcore fans high up in the funnel. So high
Mm-hmm.
up in their sales funnel, they have a lot of fans. And then further down the funnel, they have a lot of people, buying tickets and so on. But the
Mm-hmm.
thing is that they have no ideas who these fans of the club are that are following them on TikTok, might be playing them on FIFA,
Mm-hmm.
or taking some other action, or just following the club. But it's going to be really, really tricky for a club to, in maybe 1 or 2 years' time, to sell that TikTok follower that is following the club,
Mm-hmm.
to sell them, to move them down the funnel, to eventually sell them a season ticket or a
Okay.
streaming service to follow the club. So what we are trying to do, and the purpose, I would say, of just trying to sort of own the fan journey from, let's say, TikTok over here to
Mm-hmm.
to to a season ticket down here, is to be able to get the data as early as possible during this process, and also be able to communicate with the fans directly, similar as the clothing brand that wanted you to download the application and then gave you a voucher because you registered. It's going to allow for the brand or the club to start communicating directly with the fan or the customer, to eventually sell them a jersey or a t-shirt or a season ticket. So, and this movement from the clubs today, they usually have this huge gap between TikTok, and
Mm-hmm.
then they might have some market automation to sell a little bit of stuff, and then they have basically the season tickets and the game day jerseys and that kind of stuff. But they have a really sort of tricky time to control the fans, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
to sort of, this is what we call owning the fan journey and owning the customer journey, that you can be able to communicate with the fans at all times and influence them at all times at your will, not having to, let's say, pay TikTok or Facebook to reach the fans that you indirectly, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
own if you're the brand. So that is a big challenge for a lot of the sports organizations, and I would say very few do it well.
Mm-hmm. And how do you see like the sport organization? How do you see if they are ready for this kind of on this of understanding that you need to have a funnel? Like I feel like a lot of maybe it's from my experience, but I feel like a lot of code like general managers, let's say, or people just generally do the social media. Like let's say not in the big clubs, but in the smaller ones, and they just don't really thinking about the purpose. It's just good to have social media. And my question to you is that how do you see the market is ready for this?
The market is being put on a lot of pressure because there's a lot of new owners coming into sports,
Mm-hmm.
and they are, as of right now, both coming from, I would say, the west and the east. But if you take
Mm-hmm.
football and Europe as an example, a lot of money is coming in from the US right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for this is because it's potentially a great investment to
Mm-hmm.
invest in a football club. There is definitely a maturity and a willingness to do this. So, and it's happening. It's just that
Mm-hmm.
it's not done extremely well, and it's always like this when you have to change your behavior and start working differently. There is
Mm-hmm.
always, for every organization, a bit of resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So of course it's not greeted by everyone as a positive to start working differently. So, and be a little bit more maybe strategic on the data collecting
Mm-hmm.
side of things. But on the other hand, you get your money back so fast if you're a football club. So you're really also incentivized to do it. So I would say market is very, very ready. Some do it decently and maybe even good, but they are quite few. And on that topic also, it could be just good to, my understanding is that most people do not really fully understand why these investors are pouring money into sports organizations and sports franchises and so on. And the big reason for this is basically because sports is creating a lot of emotions for
Mm-hmm.
people. It's like
Mm-hmm.
this, probably like this for you. It's definitely like this for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And emotions, it is essentially what is driving our decisions. It's definitely what is driving our purchase decisions.
Mm-hmm.
We like to think that we are very logical beings and that we sort of make these very rational behaviors, but we are basically just a bag of emotions,
Mm-hmm.
having a bunch of emotions, and then we try to make logical decision to back up the emotions we already have. And in sports, I mean, fans are super loyal. It doesn't matter if your team, you might be going down two divisions from where you were before. You still stick, love, trust your team, and that is what you are buying if you are an investor.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know that if I buy this club and I can attach maybe my brand or grow the revenue streams of these organizations, I will have a lot more money back because I'm going to grow the revenues, and that is going to give me an expected return on my investment. Between, if I buy a men's club, it's usually between 5 to 6 times the return on investment that you
Mm-hmm.
are expected to have. If you buy a women's club, it's between 8 and currently sits at around 25 times the return on investment
Oh.
when you are putting up the money. Yeah, that's huge money. And the reason for this, to sort of the differences between the valuations on the women's and the men's side,
Mm-hmm.
it's two things. One is that it's a little bit harder to compete on the men's side of things. So,
Mm-hmm.
and there has already been a certain amount of growth in valuation. But the big thing is actually that the women's that have 8 to 25 expected return on investment,
Mm-hmm.
the women's teams, they attract new audiences, new people. So when Arsenal are selling 40,000 tickets to women's games, it's not the same 40,000 people that were in the men's game. So
Mm-hmm.
you are attracting loyal fans and new fans. Or then if you'd like to treat them as customers, you can always use the word
Mm-hmm.
customers. So that is why the women's sort of the organizations are growing so much faster in value. So that's also just something to keep in mind that is often forget about because people take just for granted that stuff are just becoming more and more expensive. So they feel it's pretty normal that a football club is, or an ice hockey club, or a basketball club or a baseball club becomes much more valuable. But the underlying reason for this is the fan loyalty and the fan engagement. So that is what I would say the main factor for what is also driving the valuation for a club. Then, of course, the engagement and how much they care for the club is one
Mm-hmm.
thing, and for the players. And then, of course, how many are there
Mm-hmm.
is, of course, the next one. So, how engaged are they, and how many fans are they? So, coming back to owning the fan journey, you might have engaged fans and you
Mm-hmm.
might have a big fan base, but if you don't have a lot of fans in the fan database,
Mm-hmm.
then you are going to lose a lot of value. Hence, going back to your first question, is the market mature? I would say yes, they are mature. Do they have a choice? No, they don't. So they
Mm-hmm.
pretty much how have to adapt to this ever-changing landscape.
Okay, and it's good for you, Adam, right? It's good for you.
It, yeah, it's good for us. It's definitely good for business. So for sure, and it's good to be one of those that have done it on a few occasions. So we can, at least for now, like now I'm knocking in my table, but it's at least for now that we can have a bit of a head start at least.
Oh, you mentioned, let's say, with the Arsenal example, when they selling 40,000 tickets to the women's game, and you're saying that it's a different fans than from a men's game, right? And how do you see the clubs are creating this new fans? And I think your expertise, right, in that, like, how do you see like creating new fans? How is it happening, and what is new? Where are they taking this new 40,000 people? Where are they coming from?
Yeah, that's a key question that I would love to for more, especially men's club to understand, or men's teams,
Mm-hmm.
because the reason why the women are attracting new audiences is that they behave a little bit differently. I would
Mm-hmm.
say the most telling example is that if you would have a female player going out for an interview or posting something, I would say
Mm-hmm.
on, let's say Instagram or a platform that the club
Mm-hmm.
owns, whatever. But if when the female players post something, it's usually authentic and real,
Mm-hmm.
and when the guys do the same, it's usually very polished. They are not being very authentic. They do not give a lot of things away. Everyone that have seen a Champions League game where you have the players come in for an interview and
Mm-hmm.
they are completely like this and just
Mm-hmm.
talk without any emotions. Everyone can recognize this. But on that side, the women's are a lot more accessible and a lot more authentic. And the
Mm-hmm.
thing, when you are authentic as a person, it goes through the screen, it goes through the phone. The
Mm-hmm.
next generation of the younger fans, are very sensitive to this. If they feel that something is not authentic, they dislike it, they don't care about it. But so the women's are so much better than this. That's where they are attracting a lot of new fans. They are also clearly incentivized to do this, so it's completely logical that they do this. You could just say, on average, if you are a female player, say you play in the Super League in the UK, or you play at an elite level, football, for instance, you have the majority of your salary is coming from sponsorships,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a huge difference. So they have to grow their own fan base. They have to connect with their own fans. So they are incentivized to build their brand, which in turn is allowing for the club to benefit as well, because they get more fans in the stadium. If you compare to, let's say, the men's players, where I'm gonna just ballpark a number, but let's say that 90% of the salary for the average Premier League
Mm-hmm.
player is salary being paid from the club,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe the final 10% is sponsorships. So you can see that they are clearly not incentivized to build a fan base, to
Mm-hmm.
connect with the fan base, and to sort of grow that side of their business, because the teams are not putting in the contract that you need to behave in a certain way if you're in the club, da, 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 da. But because they are, as of right now at least, content with just allowing for the guys to be pretty much like robots in television or in interviews and stuff like that. And you cannot connect with that. So if you're not authentic, if I'm not authentic with you when we speak, we will never have a connection. And
Yeah.
if a football player is not authentic when they are in the public, fans cannot connect either. So that's a huge thing that's on sort of the benefit in the women's game, and of course some male players as well. But that is just to give you an understanding of how and why, or I would say how you grow those fan bases. That is going to be key moving forward. And as I said briefly, the younger fans are extremely sensitive to this. The older fans are well, but the next generation of fans that everyone is fighting about, or fighting to win, they care for this more than the rest, which makes it a very sort of hot topic.
Adam, I have not never thought about this, and that's interesting how in depth you understand the fans creation process. That's just awesome to hear, and that's really interesting.
Yeah, but it's being talked about a little bit too little. But I also think the reason for this is because it is the men's side of sports who are sort of owning the market. So they are setting
Hmm.
the agenda a little bit. But it's not happening for sure. And everyone is moving in this direction. I mean, football clubs or other sports organizations, they are not stupid. They follow the fan engagement, they follow the movement, they follow the money. So stuff is picking up and happening all over the world.
Yeah, it's in the great thing for football clubs, for these big Premier League clubs, like you said, to have some line in the contract with the players, they should behave in a certain way, or even I don't know why players are not thinking about that, but when you being more authentic, right, and more open, you could get you could be more popular, and as a result of that, you could have a better sponsorships.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say it depends a little bit. For me, I think it's, or if being a little bit personal, I think it's easier to be authentic. But I
Hmm.
also think that you have to sort of be a little bit just understanding also about it's a little bit of a cultural change as well. And it's really hard to put in a contract saying that, yeah, you have to be super authentic every time you speak. I mean, that's not going to happen, of course. But I think just encouraging, like I said, with the incentive with the female player are naturally incentivized through sponsorships, I think makes sense. So
Hmm.
which the guys clearly aren't right now. But I mean, everyone in sports or most are competitive. Everyone wants to win. Of course, they want to win games more than anything. But I would say things are gonna pick up and happen over time. It will take the time it needs to take, but I think it's an interesting trend at least, and I also like it, to be honest. I think it makes sense to be encouraged to be honest and open and transparent. It's a lot more easier for me to like. It's easier to
Hmm.
connect with. So I like that the sports industry is moving in this direction. And then of course
Hmm.
it's not for everyone, but I like that it's encouraging people to be people, so to speak.
Yeah, that's interesting, really fundamental scene. And before the podcast, we've discussed with you that I wanted to ask you what is the specific scene that you think the most valuable for creating fans? And you said you're not sure about it, but you just answer it.
Yeah, yeah, I think stay authentic and allow fans to have access as well. I think that's sort of the main thing, and I think we are looking at a positive change in the world of sports.
Okay, yeah, so Adam, we are heading towards the end. Let's do a blitz, a small blitz, and I'll ask you some questions. First, what is your favorite sport?
It's actually not football. I would say my favorite sport is actually boxing. I think it's great to do, especially if you're a guy. But for everyone, I would say it's just great thing to do. And I also think the way that they take care about troubled kids, I think it's just, I just love that aspect of the boxing world.
Have you watched Usyk fight yesterday or a couple of days before?
Yes, I was rooting for Usyk for 100%.
Thank you. I mean, all right, great boxer.
Yeah, I'm actually leaning toward Alexander Usyk at the moment. It used to be Roy Jones Jr. when I was a kid, but I think Usyk is a perfect example of someone being authentic and a great sportsman, and also just a great symbol for your country over in Ukraine. So he is clearly just an inspiration, and he is also so funny, which makes it very easy to like him.
And do you do boxing yourself?
I used to do before I had kids. Now I would probably just get beaten down, so I try to stick away for now. Maybe like all fighters do a comeback when you're too old, so we'll see.
Yeah, and you need to speak with the clients, right? Then it's not good when you have unpresentable face, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call it representable, but it would be good if it's not at least, blue eyes. Black eyes is not good.
Yeah. Okay. What is the favorite part, Adam, of what you
I think the favorite part is that people care so much. I mean, this fan engagement is definitely for real. I mean, just I think that aspect is just great. It would be so boring to do work with something that no one pretty much care about. But every
do?
time, you make a mistake in the world of sports or you make something good, you're gonna hear about it, which I think is really nice. And I also think it's kind of beautiful that I fall asleep a little bit sad when Juventus has lost the game.
Okay, so seeing that you're helping people and seeing that people care, it actually what drives you.
Yeah, and also if you're business minded, it's just lovely to, be able to increase the business and make it a lot better. I mean, we work towards mostly sports clubs to help them grow their revenues, grow their database, help them just to digitalize. I mean, of course, it's great. If you care for the world of sports and care for the clubs, I fall in love with, it's just Tracy, I fall in love with every one of them. I don't really, I have Juventus as my favorite team,
Hmm.
but I just keep, once you get to learn, you visit the stadium, you see the fans in the bars, and you chat to them, you just fall in love all over again every time.
Wow. Yeah, Adam. So, do you want to share something else? Any thoughts or insight you like to share?
But I think if you are looking to work in the world of sports, I think it makes sense to do similar, I would say, as try to get a similar journey as I had myself, and not in every part of the way, but I just
Mhm,
like the way that you can actually, if you're 17 years old and you think that, okay, when I'm an adult or when I'm 27, I want to work in the world of sports. You can probably just walk into, let's say, your local ice hockey club or your
mhm,
local football club and say, hey, I have time on weekends and on evenings and I want to help out.
mhm,
I'm good at this and that, and it might be in the beginning, it might be just, carrying bloody stuff or
mhm,
preparing hot dogs
mhm.
for for the breaks in the halftime or whatever. But I think if you want to pursue a career in sports, that's something that I sort of highly recommend. And I also assume that some of your listeners are keen to learn, so they are probably listening to this and wanting to develop in the world of sports. And if there's a younger audience, I would definitely recommend to start working as a volunteer and work your way up. It's going to help you grow a lot of grow your knowledge of things, and you're also going to get connected with other people that are probably influential within sort of the rest of the society that your club is active in, because clubs or sports organizations always attract good people from the business side in the
Mhm,
community. So
mhm.
that's a great way to get some experience and also get connected with people that could lead to a job later on. So that's what it would be the advice that I would send to some of those listening.
Out of the conversation we had, we've covered two main fundamental human topics: is being open and give first, then receive. So I think that's what you are talking about.
Yeah, always just yeah, I think so as well. Just give, and then if you give too much, you're gonna win eventually. It's the same
Mhm.
thing that if you pursue a job that you love, you're gonna have so much fun. You're gonna be so good at it eventually. So be sure you're gonna get paid. So I think
Mhm.
it's pretty much the same thing. I agree completely.
Okay, and the last question, where can our listeners follow your work?
Yeah, so if you can spell my last name, you have Adam Stighäll, Stighall. You find me on LinkedIn, or you can just Google Forza Clubs. You'll have my name somewhere down there. But I think LinkedIn is the easiest way for me, for you guys to connect if you want to have a chat, get hired, or do business. You have to choose.
Okay, great. Adam, it was great to have you with a, blackboard behind you with some programming stuff, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. We had the opportunity to write some notes down here, but I think we covered it without the whiteboard today, didn't we, Kiroli?
Yeah, we did. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. It was great to have you.
Thank you.